At the root of gender-based violence is an unequal power dynamic, and it's very important to define an issue before we delve into a deeper understanding of it. So simply put, and in the most easiest of understanding so that everybody could understand what it really is, GBV refers to any act that results in physical, sexual, psychological, emotional harm or suffering that is very specifically targeted towards another person, usually women and girls, and other identities of intersectional identities, because they are of that gender identity. These are rooted in gender norms, and as I said, unequal power dynamics. The usual manifestations of GBV, especially in the context of Pakistan, would be domestic violence or other intimate partner violence, which is a highly prevalent form, a highly normalized form of spousal abuse, dowry-related violence, marital rape, honor killings within the context of marriage. Some rape and sexual assault in and of itself is a category of gender-based violence, which is quite prevalent in Pakistan. Honor killings, severe form of violence, mostly targeted towards women and girls, where allegedly shame and honor of the family is rooted in a gender identity, and it's a patriarchal norm that defines notions of family honor. Acid attacks is another fairly common form of revenge and punishment, primarily targeting women. Early forced and child marriages, public harassment, cyber harassment, trafficking, and forced labor. So all of these are some of the, and we can, if you want, we can delve deeper into what any of the, all or most of these mean, but these are some of the most top of mind and like front and center forms in which women and girls experience gender-based violence in Pakistani society, not just there, it's across the world, it's a global phenomenon. It is a pandemic, not an it's not endemic anymore, it's a pandemic, it's monstrous proportions, but those are some of the ways in which it manifests.
Well, I think these are very serious and heinous crimes just against humanity itself that you've described. But when we look at the numbers, sadly, there are a lot of numbers. So according to the National Commission of Human Rights in Pakistan, 63,000 cases of domestic violence were reported. But I mean, it goes without saying that these are crudely underreported because of the fact that these are numbers which were officially that were filed against. But well, it's well known that majority, we can even say up to 90% of the cases of domestic violence or domestic abuse are not even reported officially, and they never enter the administrative system that that factors in and that paints the clear picture. But there are other implicit ways of how we can determine how serious the issue is. And I want to bring in the economic aspect, because when we look at the female labor force participation in Pakistan, it's 22%. But if you look at the urban female labor force participation, it is 10%, and it has been hovering around that number since the last 20 years. And mind you that this is one of the lowest in the world. And when we look or we try to uncover the reasons as to why female labor force participation is so low, domestic abuse, domestic violence comes at the forefront, because you're unable, as a society, we are unable to create a safe and secure environment through which women can, just navigate through public and private spaces, and which makes it very difficult for them to attend to employment, take up, entrepreneurial work, and only 1 in 14 women work in Pakistan. These are the figures. What on the policy side, what do you think can be done, is being done in Pakistan? And what are some of the best case examples that you worked on globally that have helped address this issue?
So it's understanding this issue is a little complicated because it's like an onion. The more you peel on the layers, the more the issue presents itself. So I guess a few points to that. One of the biggest, and this is at a global level, but obviously more pronounced when we talk of the situation in Pakistan, is that data collection on GBV issues is first, there's a huge gap. Globally, we've realized it. We're funding money into and resources into bridging that gap and trying to collect prevalence data, administrative data as much as possible to be able to drive evidence-based and data-driven policy reforms and policy proposals when it comes to prevention and elimination of gender-based violence. In Pakistan, a lot of the good work that's being done is at a civil society organization levels or mostly development sector work. It's funny because you were saying that the issue never takes center stage. It's never in the news. Legislatively, we don't know what's been happening. And in my cursory research, I think the last legislative reform that came was probably 2016, where they amended the criminal bill through an amendment to include some form of gender-based violence into the realm. But there's huge deficiencies in tackling the issue or just understanding the gravity of it to then be able to resolve it through policy or legislative reform. When we talk about what it is that works and what I think before we go into what works, we first have to recognize the drivers of gender-based violence and how it links to economic and economic inclusion and social inclusion as well. All of these it's like a vicious circle and they're tied together. There's also this huge divide between urban and rural populations, where statistically we say 1 in 3 women experiences gender-based violence in their lifetime, but that is a huge underreported figure. It's a global figure. In Pakistan, I think UNFPA came up with some, and this was in their urban population with a limited data set, that 32% of the population of women that they interviewed for health within the health sector had experienced some form of domestic violence. And again, underreporting, the numbers are as high as 90%. So in terms of when gender-based violence is in the experience of women and girls within society, we are driving poverty, we are driving limited social participation, this social stigma. All of this is caused by violence, is a driver of violence, and it keeps women and girls out of the workforce. Prevention is always better than elimination. We can't continuously try. I mean, we have to understand the entry points of where change needs to happen. One of the key aspects of change is social norms change. Working with male allies, working with tribal leaders, religious leaders to change social narratives and change social norms that are rooted in patriarchy that then manifest in domestic violence or other forms of gender-based violence. So there has to be policy at a level where not just government, but also civil society, the public sector, the private sector, individuals are being educated through schooling, are being educated through what we see on the media, through any channel through which social reform can be implemented. So driving policy towards preventative measures, educating about gender equal norms. There's also this divide that we experience in Pakistan between traditional schooling that's religious and then the conventional or I guess
the more liberal,
more mainstream liberal. Let's
yeah.
not call. I mean, I don't know how liberal that liberal is, but there's two separate areas where children are being taught how to become individuals that participate in society, and both of those need to be addressed through education and recognizing the when we talk about gender equality, we're not talking about something that's un-Islamic, something that's against religious principles, against culture of the country or society but it's very it's rooted in it that respect of every human being, irrespective of gender, is something that is taught to us by our religion and our culture. So that's a policy that's very important, reforming our school curricula. Apart from that, another aspect of this is public participation. A lot of times women are not safe to access public spaces, be it parks, be it streets, be it public transport, getting to and fro from work, and then the workplace itself. Ensuring that those spaces are safe for women to access, encouraging more women to participate in that is a policy, is an area of policy making that can be very helpful in driving more women into the workforce. A lot of these policies see the backlash on cultural relativism as any policy that you try to focus towards this, saying, they're trying to ruin the culture. And cultural relativism is perhaps the biggest setback that's used, or an argument used to counter any efforts of trying to achieve gender equality. So understanding that culture was not formed in a day. Patriarchal norms, misogyny was not part of the culture. It became so because of power dynamics at play. And if we start changing them now, maybe within 20 to 30, although we are not going to achieve, I guess, gender equality in our time, in our lifetime, as the statistics show, but recognizing that those norms were not developed in a vacuum. There's a reason that they came into being and can be reformed, and must be reformed, is important.